All right, listeners, I think you know that we are part of the Radiotopia network, which is basically a network built on the idea that you should support the most creative, independent audio makers around. No one, and I mean no one, embodies the Radiotopia ethos more than Benjamin Walker and his show Theory of Everything. Benjamin, who I've known for a long time, has been making beautiful, personal, sprawling audio documentaries for decades that help us understand the very strange world we live in. And now he has a new series called Not All Propaganda is Art. The new series goes back to the 1950s when Western security agencies like the CIA paid artists, writers, and intellectuals to fight the cultural Cold War.
The CIA funds were free. I mean, no one was told what to say.
Gloria Steinem, activist who sees the CIA as a sort of enlightened pal or rich uncle, there is another viewpoint.
Look, if you're listening to this show, I know you like secret histories. I know you like a mix of culture and politics and shadowy figures. So what are you waiting for? Not All Propaganda is Art from Benjamin Walker. You can find it now wherever you listen or at theoryofeverythingpodcast.com. This day is brought to you by Progressive. Are you driving your car or doing laundry right now? Podcasts go best when they're bundled with another activity. Kind of like Progressive home and auto policies. They're best when bundled too. Having those two policies together makes insurance easier and could help you save. Customers who save by switching their home and car insurance to Progressive save nearly $800 on average. Quote a home and car bundle today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $793 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2021 and May 2022. Potential savings will vary. Hello and welcome to This Day in Esoteric Political History from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avergan. This day, January 30th, 1913, the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority was legally incorporated, a major milestone for the Black Greek letter organization. And look, listeners, I know it's late January here, and this moment in 1913 is when AKA is formally incorporated. It's important, but ask anyone in AKA about the most important early date, and they will mention January 15th, 1908, which is known as Founders Day. And that is celebrated every year, a big date, but this is where I confess that we missed that hook. We were going to do it on January 15th. We got our wires crossed, and we really wanted to do an episode of the AKA. So, just pretend we're talking about the founding of the AKAs, January 15th, somewhere in January, 1908, 1913, early years. But look, the point is Alpha Kappa Alpha has a membership now of more than 200,000 women in over 950 chapters in the United States, several other countries, and an incredibly important and consequential group that has all sorts of interesting ties, as well as really incredible list of alumni. So we will get to that a little bit too. But here to discuss the founding of the AKA sorority are, as always, Nicole Hemmer of Columbia and Kellie Carter-Jackson of Wellesley. Hello there.
Hello, Jody.
Hey there.
I thoroughly confused listeners about the hook, but look.
Listen, AKAs are celebrating all year, okay?
Exactly. But, it is true. You go to the AKA website and it says 1908 in it, like the Founders Day, 1908, huge deal. And I think we want to talk a little bit about why the founding is so important and what it meant in that context of the early years of the 20th century. But Kellie.
Yeah. Yes.
You went to Howard.
I know.
AKA, it's founded Howard. Did you consider joining?
I did. I know this is not, this is a podcast so no one can see me, but I am wearing my Howard sweatshirt, which I have a dozen of these. I wear them all the time, so that's probably not exceptional. But I wore my Howard sweatshirt today. I did think about pledging. It's Alpha chapter. Alpha chapter is where it started. So, and Howard University is Alpha chapter for a lot of the Divine Nine, the Delta Sigma Theta sorority incorporated as well. So I don't know. It's complicated. I feel like every time I have this conversation with other Black women, did you pledge? Did you pledge? I'm like, well, I thought about it. I went to a couple meetings. Kind of wasn't my jam because they weren't that very nice to me. But I've always considered grad chapter. I've always thought that might be something I might pursue. But I don't know. It's something that is very unique and special when you are at a HBCU and you are an undergrad and you want to step and you want to like stroll on the yard and you want to wear the colors. There's so much like hype about being any part of the Divine Nine, but certainly either a Delta or AK. Those were like the two highly most coveted sororities. And it was hard. They were not letting anybody in. So, and with good reason. When you see that roster of, notable AKAs, the standards are high.
And I think the country got a glimpse at some of the AKA culture more broadly when Kamala Harris became vice president of the United States, because she was on that list of illustrious AKA women. And there was a lot of salmon pink and apple green to celebrate her inauguration.
Yes. The pink and green was like gone crazy, and pearls and all of that. I mean, like all of my friends that are AKAs were living their best lives in the whole inauguration moment. It's like, it's probably, I would say there are a lot of famous alumni, but for sure Kamala Harris takes the cake. I mean, it's huge. So and should she ever attain the office of presidency, watch out. It will be insane.
Pink and green color scheme coming into the Oval, yeah. But look, I mean, I think, the thinking of the AKAs as a sort of political organization is a really fascinating way, and sort of how it has wended its way through political power is, I think, really, really interesting. I mean, notable members, right? There's certainly politicians or people who have devoted their life to politics. Rosa Parks, Kamala Harris, as we've been saying, but, Maya Angelou, Jada Pinkett Smith, Ella Fitzgerald, Wanda Sykes, Ava DuVernay, Alicia Keys. I mean, it just goes, it's an incredible list.
But we should say the organization is apolitical. Like, they're not known to like endorse candidates or anything like that. I think, Kamala's an exception to that.
Correct. But they can mobilize in a really fascinating way. And I think we saw that with Kamala, and I think we can see, and we've seen there's examples through the years of the group tapping its alumni network and raising millions and millions of dollars in a day for a cause. Yes, it is apolitical in the way that a lot of fraternities and sororities and these kinds of Greek organizations are. But let's talk about these early founding days. I mean, what is your sense of, we're talking about within Howard University, already a sort of really interesting space, right, in 1908.
Yeah.
Why now create this other space within that space? What is your sense of what really was there at the founding moment?
This is interesting because a lot of fraternities and sororities are starting towards the beginning, I would say, of the early 20th century period. This is where you have a lot of HBCUs that are sort of like in a high moment of peak education for Black people. And so it's a way of having an elite society, a group of people that have a particular goal. For a lot of them, it's community service or scholarships. But it's also about like the afterlife, like what happens when you leave the walls of Howard University. Do you have, or any HBCU for that matter, do you have a connection, a network that can plug you into jobs, that can plug you into certain internships, that can make sure that when you move into a town, you can get, on solid ground. So that's the interesting thing about these things, is that they're not just limited to the college experience. I mean, women take these sororities through their marriages, through death. There's all kinds of ceremonies and, anniversaries and ways in which people stay connected to each other for a lifetime. It's a sisterhood for a lifetime. So that's what I think makes it different than just being at a HBCU like a FAMU or a Spelman where you're there for like 4 years. This is a lifelong commitment.
And it takes on a particular importance in those early years when you're in a period of Jim Crow segregation and of disenfranchisement. White women will win access to the ballot in 1920, but for a lot of Black women, that isn't the case. And even though AKA isn't a partisan organization, it does lobby for political change. So one of the things that it does in the 1920s is it lobbies for anti-lynching legislation. And it becomes a unit of the expression of the political will of a group of people, which is particularly important when you don't have the same kind of access to the ballot.
Yeah. Yeah, and even when this is, their sister organization, Delta Sigma Theta, one of their first actions as an organization was to march in the Women's March of 1913 in Washington, D.C. for a women's right to vote. So we say it's apolitical, but at the same time, these organizations have a social agenda, a political agenda, if you will, that means a lot, especially when you think about the civil rights movement.
Yeah. When your existence is a political act, then,
Yes.
then you inevitably, as you navigate your way through the world, it's going to end up being political in that sense. But yeah, some of the early founders clearly, had core values that they lived out throughout their lives. Nellie Quander in particular was one of the first presidents, and she went on to just do incredible education reform in Washington, D.C., where African-American teachers in public schools were paid on the same scale as whites. And, way back then, you see this kind of life of both activism and service working its way through, which, I considered joining a fraternity as well as my college, but I think to highlight your point, Kellie, I think for a lot of people on the outside, you look at a fraternity and you think, oh, this is something about the 4 years in college is going to make it fun, and you're going to have parties and access to a sort of social lubricant or whatever. And actually, right, many of them are focused on what happens after college and all those networks and all that alumni connection and good and bad, that insular world that is created.
It's also a big difference between a white sorority and a black sorority, a huge difference. And I don't just mean culturally. A lot of times I think at PWIs or white institutions, when people pledge, it's for the parties and it's for the frat house or a space to live during that time. But for most of the people who are pledging at an HBCU or at a white school in which they have the Divine Nine, their mothers, their grandfathers, their great-grandparents were a part of this organization. Yeah. There are reunions. There are, huge conferences that take place. And it is such an intense network that this is how people not just get their jobs afterwards, but really find their communities when they go to live pretty much anywhere in the world. There's that commonality.
Yeah, I also think that, you mentioned that Nellie Quander was somebody who was dedicated to service. And I think that that's an important part of the AKA sorority as well, that from the very beginning, they were tapped into social justice advocacy. So they would work with people like Jane Addams, who was running the Hull House in Chicago. They would raise money for Black people in Mississippi in the midst of a famine. They would, the organization would become a lifelong member of the NAACP. So there was this. And
scholarships are a big deal. I had a scholarship from one of the Divine Nine to get to college. Those community programs, those service programs that they did, even leading voting drives and COVID vaccinations and every single thing that you can imagine in terms of a service-oriented group, AKA would be there.
Wait, you had a scholarship from a sorority that let you get into college. Did that not feel like even more pressure to maybe join? I just want more stories of you in college.
I know. I got a scholarship from Delta Sigma Theta. I think it was about maybe $500. It was enough to pay for books, help me get my plane ticket to Howard. And I was also a part of the debutante ball. I know this is so Southern, but I was a debutante. You know how they have those big wedding dresses basically, and the deltas through that, and it was a huge deal to be a part of presented as Southern society with your parents that would walk you down the aisle arm in arm and say, Kellie Carter is a rising senior at A&M Consolidated High School. It was this whole thing. So yeah, when I went to Howard, I absolutely wanted to be a part of that community. But I also grew up, I have 5 sisters, and so that's a sorority in and of itself a little bit. And so,
right.
I don't know, but if my daughters wanted to do it, absolutely, I would support them. I think that it's an admirable thing to do, and it's a life of sisterhood and a life of service, and I always value that. So the time may have passed for me, I don't know, but for others, I think it's a huge thing to do.
Yeah.
Can we talk about some of the social aspects of it, though?
Yeah,
like step shows.
Yeah.
And homecoming, like, I will say one of the biggest draws to not just AKA, but like sorority and fraternity life was the social aspects, the step shows, like homecoming. Everyone knows that Howard's homecoming is legendary. And so to be able to be in the auditorium and see like these sororities competing against each other in step competitions, which combines like stomping and dance and all kinds of theatrics. It's a really good time. Or to see just people strolling on the yard in their colors, in their jackets. You know, there's an energy around that is so like decadent and aspirational and cool that there's a big lure to want to be a part of an organization like this for any of the members of the Divine Nine, but certainly for AKA, I think given their incredible roster of just, you know, notable members, people want to be a part of that. But for me in college...
But did that strike you as, oh, this is cool and there's real admirable pride there? Or did it strike you as like, this is a little
I
much?
mean, no, I was definitely like, yeah, I would pledge. But I mean, it's expensive. It's really expensive to pledge. It's, you know, thousands of dollars. And if you're in college, it's a long process and it can be hard to endure. I mean, like if anyone has tried to pledge any sort of fraternity or sorority, there's the hazing aspect. There's like, you know, all the studying that you have to do, the history that you have to know. I mean, it is a grueling process for a lot of people. And I think that's why some people get turned off or turned away. But I do think it's different if you are pledging in grad chapter. Mostly everyone is sort of like well into their business or their professional lives, and the shenanigans get cut down significantly. But so it's not as difficult, I would say. But
this dynamic that you're sort of describing, I mean, it does pop up from time to time. And I mean, listeners might be thinking of most recently, this sort of made the news in that there was that thing about the final season of Insecure. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, Amanda Seales' character, Tiffany Du Bois, who like is a fictional character in a TV show, wore an AK sweatshirt, and people lost their minds because Amanda Seales is not a soror.
You cannot wear the colors if you are not an AKA.
Right, and I mean, it became a whole thing. Issa Rae had to respond, and you know, no one really apologized. But like Amanda Seales is like on her Instagram saying, "Tiffany is a character on a TV show. I didn't write." This is literally, I'm quoting here. "I didn't write the character. I played the character. I'm not a soror. I'm an actress, and I'm playing a character on a TV show." I really think this got folks fucked up because, you know, I'm just playing a character, and then like the exclamation points start coming. And she's like,
okay, so that is kind of what I'm alluding to when I say that this is like savage out here. Like, it is no joke how intensely. To give you an example, this is another reason why I did not pledge. I went to a meeting. It was hundreds of girls that wanted to be, you know, that wanted to pledge. You're never supposed to wear the colors, like never. So earlier that day, I had on a green sweater, like a lime green sweater, and I like to match my nail polish to my outfits. So I had on lime green nail polish. So when I went to the event, of course, I changed. I put on a suit because you have to like put on a business suit in order to go to these things. It's very swanky. But I kept my lime green nail polish on because I was like, I'm not going to change my nail polish. I show up to the event. One girl sees my hand and she's like, oh, that's an interesting color. And I was like, me, the dum-dum. I was like, oh, yeah, I love green. And they were like, sisters, what do we think about her nail polish? I was like, I realized I was in big trouble after that. And suffice to say, I never went to another meeting again. I got like ganged up on, and that was the end of that for me. I don't even think they would have took me after that.
I will say the trauma exists decades later because at the beginning of this recording, before we started, I asked Kellie if she was wearing any AKA gear, and the horror that flashed across her face at the idea that she might have violated this code.
Oh, no. I am not going down like that. I am not going down. Oh, nothing but respect. Nothing but respect, ladies. Don't come for me. Like, I love AK. It's great. I am not one. I don't know if I will be one, but nothing but respect for what they do. And that's for all the Divine Nine, to be honest.
Wow, you're really just trying to cover all your bases here as we wrap up the show.
I love you all. You're all beautiful.
All right, well, we leave it there. If you want to give Kellie a hard time, you can find our contact info at thisdaypod.com, and we'll take it from there. But yeah, if anyone listening is a member or alum of the Divine Nine, we'd love to hear your perspective on this for sure. And you can, find us through our website. But Nicole Hemmer, thanks to you.
Thank you, Jody.
And Kellie Carter-Jackson, thanks to you.
My pleasure.
This Day in Esoteric Political History is a proud member of Radiotopia from PRX, a network of independent, listener-supported, artist-owned podcasts. If you'd like to support the show and the network directly, we can't do this show without you. You can do so at our website, thisdaypod.org. Our researcher and producer is Jacob Feldman. Our producer is Brittany Brown. Kala Nakua helps with transcripts. Special thanks to Julie Shapiro and Audrey Murdovich, executive producers at Radiotopia, and special thanks to the whole team at Radiotopia and PRX. Get in touch if you have any questions or comments or ideas for topics on the show or special guests that you would like us to have on. You can email us thisdaypod@gmail.com, or you can find a form at thisdaypod.com. On our website, you can also get full archives, transcripts, and learn lots more about the show. Follow us on social media at thisdaypod on Instagram and Twitter. We're posting lots of stuff each and every day. This is my obligatory please rate and review us in your favorite podcast app, or better yet, just tell a friend about the show. My name is Jody Avirgan. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you soon. Support for This Day in Esoteric Political History comes from Odoo. If you feel like you're wasting time and money with your current business software, or just want to know what you could be missing, then you'll need to join the millions of others who have switched to Odoo. Odoo is the affordable, all-in-one management software with a library of fully integrated business applications that help you get more done in less time for a fraction of the price. To learn more, visit odoo.com/thisday. That's odoo.com/thisday. Odoo, modern management made simple.
Radiotopia from P.